I love the Steve Jobs quotes. Do you want to be the part of the Navy or do you want to be a pirate? You kind of have to be ready for the fact that you're kind of like competing in the Olympics, trying to get like a Nobel Prize, and you're trying to be like the leader of the big soccer team. We're trying to figure out a way to balance like a solo fund style with 3 solo funds while also being one fund. I would allow my kids to do anything I would allow a drunk friend to do. I'm getting really stuck on this thing, and I can't see how I fix trust. I think it's hard to invest in like equality as like a thesis topic sometimes, but I think climate change is obvious. I think there are a lot of companies where you can easily see them turning over $1 million, and you have a hard time imagining how they're going to turn over 100. And then you have companies who you think, how the heck are they going to survive 2 years? But if it works, this is going to be insane. You probably need to feel like that.
Well, Hampus, thank you for taking the time. Thank you for having me at the job. I appreciate you. Look, today I'd like to talk about a lot of different things. Partly your story, as you started a company very early in your life and sold it later. Partly you as a person. I was chatting to a lot of people that know you, including your partners, trying to get some insights as well. Also to understand how your personality works as a VC as well, right? Like what are the traits of your personalities that makes you a great VC? We love to talk about building a fund with 3 completely different people, right? Which I think is amazing. I've met with them yesterday, and we were chatting about that, which is so cool. Sounds like a good agenda.
Sounds great. How long time do you have? Like, do we have 9 hours or?
We have as long as you need. I mean, I'm flying only tomorrow, so.
Oh, that's good.
This episode is brought to you by Accelerating Impact, a non-profit that drives impact finance by running free accelerator program to support emerging impact managers. By joining them, you will get coaching, training, financial support, and access to a strong community of emerging managers. Sign up at the link in the description, and thank you to Accelerating Impact for supporting this episode. You started a company very early in your life. I think you were still in university. The company is called the Astonishing Tribe. It was yourself and 6 friends. You built it for fun at first and then sold it to BlackBerry with quite a significant exit. Do you think the secret to being successful is doing it for fun?
No, but I think it helps. I think that like at the Astonishing Tribe, TAT, which we abbreviated it to because it was tricky for people to type that out, and it was a long domain. It was a tricky thing to say to people, like email me at, like me and my 5 co-founders. I think that the thing is that we coalesced and started working together at like 3 or 4 different projects, very much like, like we known each other really well. We we wanted to do stuff together, but there was no business plan. So I was in London, like doing an internship at an art studio, and I was like building a lot of computer arts. It was really, really fun. And one of my friends came over, and we were really excited about it. What we didn't understand was this is the year 2000, and like a lobby at like Channel 4 lobby could just throw money at building something crazy because there was infinite amount of cash, which happened again and again in history, right? But I think we as students just felt like the hope and creativity and like dreams of art was just so insane. So we just like, we want to start an art studio and like just be able to build, what I think what an artist would call not art, like it was corporate art, but it was like, building massive installations. We were all engineers like in that group, and we just felt like it was really fun. And then we had another 2 friends that were going to do a consultancy project that summer for a company and helping them do image compression, figure out which was a startup that they were helping out. They were also students. And then we had another friend who was doing the special effects for like the students movie. And like that group, like we knew each other really well. Some lived together. Some had done, like we've all more or less done military service together in different shapes of forms in different age groups, but like, in the same small troop, like we build a massive software system for the military. So we kind of had to debug each other's code and call each other like, hey, you built this 2 years ago. What the heck is going on here? Or somebody had built the hardware and like, what's going on? So like we knew each other professionally and like, student wise really well. And I think when we started this, I think that it was these 3 groups that kind of said, okay, let's start a company, but it was not intended to be together. It was more like an idea because it cost 10,000 euros at the time in Sweden to start our company. So the idea was more like, let's just pull in the capital, let's start the company, let's work on a different project, let's, get the money out individually or whatever in their project because what we're working on. So it's like more like a placeholder thing. And so when we started doing that, what happened was that Sony and Ericsson merged roughly like in 9 months after we did that. And they had this super ambitious idea of building like these graphic interface phones, like very Japanese inspired in 2000, 2001. And like people remember their phones in Europe in 2000, they were like, text displays that were like microwave on experience. So it was impossible with European costs to build phones that were like Japanese quality. What was really weird is this group of 6 people that we had done that as hobby projects in what in Nordics call a thing which is called the demo scene, where Finland, Norway, Sweden, and Denmark were really big at like hacking old consoles and gathering together in big like ice hockey arenas and just show what we could build. And we had all been part of that movement and really enjoyed it. So when this happened, like around us with Sony Ericsson merging, we kind of latched onto that as like, okay, we can help out. We do something. And it was completely serendipitous by a friend introducing us, asking for help. And we built a demo for them. And then when the Sony Ericsson people looked at that, they were like, yeah, we'd love to pay you. And they said like, after a funny conversation, they end up saying like $50,000, which was insane amount of money. And I mean, we were still, some of us were students, some of us had graduated. And then we kind of felt that if you look at what arts paid us, and again, we were students, we were not looking to do this professionally, but we kind of felt that like this was the most appreciative customer we've had. All the arts people were like, you'll get a free beer. And we're like, oh, that's amazing, right? And then Sony Ericsson were like, no, they were paying us real cash. They were helping us out. They were really like, I think we were so impressed by and so intrigued by just getting better at craft, to be honest. So I think that I think the 6 of us have always been into craft. Like, one of them built a full-sized R2D2 like a couple of years ago.
We need to have 2D2 robots at the drop next year. Like, it needs to go around.
Yeah, and 2 of them are now building like a synthesizer, all made in wood. It's like, they're like the 6 of us were very, very craft people. And craft, I'm not a physical craft. I do ceramics a bit, but I mean, honestly, I'm probably the least craft people of us probably. But I think we were all into craft like in different ways. And I think writing and, coding or music, whatever. So I think that when we started meeting Sony and really sort of understand what they want us to do, we were so intrigued on just going on that growth journey as people of latching onto that and just building something which was more or less impossible. And I think that made us fuse together and galvanize and build a product company around shipping stuff for mobile phones. And we ended up shipping an enormous amount of phones. And I think so your question is like, is the secret having fun? I think the secret there is really the combo of personal growth and taking things very seriously while at the same time not taking yourself too seriously.
Yeah.
And I think we had a lot of customers that end up saying they wanted to work with TAT because they really liked us. And I think that we gave them all the reasons to work with us technically because we were really good at our jobs. And why we're good at our jobs because we hired people who we really wanted to work with.
Yeah.
And I think at the end of the day, a lot of people we hired them very much with the agenda. Are they smart? Do they get shit done? And are they nice? So like a lot of times, like, are they nice? Are the people you want to hang out with and like have a beer with or talk with and like really get energy from? Are they smart? As in like, they don't have a problem. We're landing in Seoul tomorrow. We're going to Samsung. You have to sit down with a Korean manager who's twice your age, who's got a PhD in your subject, and you just have to stare and really understand what he's saying and take it down and solve the problem tonight. And when somebody's saying going out for beers, you're like, no, I'm going to code this because tomorrow this manager is going to stare at me at 6 a.m. and is going to build it right. But also, as in like the hardworking part of just like, you want to do that because you want to personally grow. So we hired those people and we were with those people and we built this. I mean, the name, The Astonishing Tribe, was not intended, but it became that. We were like an astonishing tribe of people. It was really this feeling of, we ended up being 180 people, offices in Tokyo, Taipei, Seoul, Chicago, San Francisco, and 2 in Sweden. And I think that I was so proud of seeing people just grow and just becoming, we hired one guy, this amazing young guy, Rasmus. With his interests, we always wanted we kind of ignored people's CVs and grades and whatever. We just said we had a chat with him and said show what you built. And this guy just said open your browser. And like, okay, she's going to sell us a web page. I mean, this is like 2005. It's like web page is not impressive, I guess. And he just like get inspect mode, go to GitHub, and we realized like he was trying to explain to us in the interview, which we didn't get at first, that he had built part of the WebKit, like what's the browser, like, the fundamental of how many browsers are built. And this guy was, like 21. And when he joined us, his mom packed his bag, drove him to the airport in Copenhagen. He took off on a plane and moved into his first apartment in his life in Seoul, in South Korea, which we at TAT rented. And those were the people we hired. Like, they were extraordinary people who just like, we saw them and we were good at just saying, like, we believe in you.
Maybe on that, and I think that's very important for the startup ecosystem. How do you convince people to join a project that, I mean, at the time you were already having a bit of revenue and the company was growing, right? But as you said, the guy is so smart. He can get a job at a corporate and get a good paycheck, I guess, not work 80 hours a week
No, of
because he
course.
has to code and everything. So, like, how do you convince these people to join early?
I love the Steve Jobs quotes. It's like, do you want to be the part of the Navy or do you want to be a pirate? The funny thing about being a pirate in the Navy, it's exactly the same thing. Like, your job is the same, right? You're in a big ship, you drive around in the ocean, and there's like very seldom there's a battle. You try to avoid them. And like a lot of times you're just trying to figure out like food and water and stuff like that. It's the same job. One job, you have a boss and a massive hierarchy, and there's no way you can grow. Like, you're just waiting for other people to die or to just be there long enough so you could graduate, right? If you're a pirate, like, you're your own boss. And as like I think Philip and many others have said, the amazing thing about being an entrepreneur is you can work any 80 hours you want a week. That's amazing. Like, that's freedom, right? So at the end of the day, how do you get somebody to want to be an entrepreneur? At the end of the day, the question for me is like, do they want to grow? If the goal they see is themselves is that they want to have a lot of time for evening photography and long walks at the beach and reading a lot of fiction and like making sure they're not working more than 6 hours a day, I think you should not build a startup. The crazy thing when you start a startup, you start this startup with one or two of your friends. And the first year, you have to find customers, you have to build a product, you have to, figure out how to do sales, marketing. Like, there's nobody that can do your job better than you do because it's a new job, right? It doesn't exist before. And also, you have to start managing your two co-founders because suddenly you became the boss. You have to hire people, you have to become their boss. You're just looking around you because you're thinking, how do I go to boss school so I learn how to be a manager? And you realize there is no boss school, right? And it's like, and again, you just realize the only way to do it is you just have to personally grow. So I usually recommend people that, like, if you want insane personal growth, like starting a startup is that. But you kind of have to be ready for the fact that you're kind of like competing in the Olympics, trying to get like a Nobel Prize, and you're trying to be like the leader of the big soccer team.
Yeah.
And that's the three things you're trying to do at the same time. And that's hard and it's intense, right? But you kind of have to master those three things. And I think that gets that immense personal growth.
And going back to hiring, so you said it's funny because you answered my question in a way, like talking about entrepreneurs themselves. Do you think the first few people in your team should be kind of wannabe entrepreneurs as opposed to employees, kind of thing, right?
I think the first people joining you are entrepreneurs because they're absolutely crazy to join you. So I think the thing that I've seen people fail at doing is when there are three people, they don't have product market fit. They hire a person that they think will help them solve their biggest problem. Like, like the Gordian knot, they just come in and like solve the problem. Like, you had like a lot, I don't know how many times I've heard an entrepreneur say at an event or something, like, I'm looking for a CTO co-founder. And you ask them, like, what are you building? And like, this like marketplace rental thing. Okay, why do you need a CTO co-founder? Because I can't code. Okay, so we're already create this block that you can't code. Okay, whatever. Now you're two founders. You built this thing. You have this thing. We're looking for a salesperson. Why? Because we need to get people to buy it. Like, I don't get it. Well, have you talked to customers? No, that's why you need a salesperson. And then when you have like that team, then you go like, we need a like growth manager. What's the growth manager going to do? Increase so we get more customers. But what are you talking about? Like, you're just like, a lot of people have these barriers when they don't realize what you're looking for in the first people. You're looking for people like that can take stuff between two unknowns. I mean, entrepreneur in English doesn't really make sense, but entrepreneur like means something. Like,
Yeah.
you have to carry something across a vast chasm of unknown.
Yeah.
So I usually feel like the first 10 people you hire, they could start their own companies. I think that there's a very big difference between that last 10% of crazy bit, which is what makes founders both amazing, but also makes them not amazing. I usually find this, like, like when I talk at universities, I usually try to explain, like, if you put everybody in your class, like, if I look at the students, like, think about everybody in your class now. Think like 1 is the worst ever at a trait you can possibly think about, and 5 is the most impressive at a trait you can ever think about. Now think about people in your class, how they're on time, how they interrupt others, how good they're presenting, how they're good at like physics, whatever. Like just rattle through stuff. Now, yeah, do you have in your mind now a couple of people that are 5s, 4s, 3? Yeah, okay. And then I say, like, the funny thing is most people in your class are funny enough striving to be a 4. They're not striving to be a 5, actually. And then people like, they don't like, nah, I don't think they're right. Because they all feel like I'm trying to be a 5. I'm like an elite student. No, you don't. Because the people who are 5 are like completely crazy. Like, that person in your class that you couldn't figure out if she was completely crazy or if like in a good or a bad way.
Yeah.
And the teacher didn't relegate it either. That's a 5. And the 5s are so similar to the 1s.
Yeah.
Like somebody says something that like, that's probably not true. Or maybe it's really how it works. And I think that's the thing as like, the founders have to be like 5 1s. Like, I mean, it's like you don't know if it's good. I usually like jokingly say crazy good or crazy bad. But the rest of the people you're hiring, the first like 8 people or 10 or whatever they're going to be, are probably going to be 4s. Yeah. They can't be that crazy because then you just create more and more chaos. But the thing, a person who's 4 at something, this is like some of the best people you met on the planet. The thing about that 4, it's not necessarily how good you're at carrying boxes. It's also that unstoppable feeling of not waiting for permission, not just saying, oh, do we have a policy about that? But just being like I'll solve it attitude. And I think that's like, I think those first people, they're not necessarily, I would say the difference between the entrepreneurs and the first 8 hires or 10 hires is the entrepreneurs are like daredevils. And then the first employees are unstoppable. And daredevils are unstoppable too.
It's a good segue to talking about you as a person. We were briefly chatting earlier about that, but when I was talking to Joel, to Heidi, and to a few other people, one of the things that comes back about you is, and I'll quote Joel for that. He said you're the highest agency person he's seen in his entire life, meaning that sometimes he has to tell you in a meeting, please don't email people to fix this because I know you will do it before the end of the meeting, right?
Yeah. I usually do it when he talks, actually, because I text and talk. So like when he's okay, I email them you all, and he's like, no, I just brought it up as a thought.
Exactly, right? That's what he told me. And so I think that's maybe, reminds me a little bit of what you were saying in terms of like, is it crazy good or crazy bad? You're like, you have this trait, which is agency as a 5 for sure, or as a 1, I don't know, but at least one of the
Ask my wife.
For sure. Do you think that's something that you want to see as well in the companies you invest in, to have someone that is the driving force behind things and like not waiting for anything, just like going for it?
I think the thing I love about like how we're trying to build Pale Dot essentially is that, and I say it was a lot of affection. I think that we're trying to figure out a way to balance like a solo fund style with 3 solo funds, like Heidi Fund, Hampus Fund, and Yule Fund, while also being one fund. And I think that we don't have consensus investments. Like it's like a super important thing about us. Like if Heidi finds a founder that she really likes and we should do it, you will now try to be antagonistic and be like, wait a second, is this really good? At the end of the day, like we have legally or whatever you want to technically, we could like veto a deal, any of 3 of us. It's never happened. We try to like grind the other person down. We try to give them agreements. We try to like, no, try to get them to not do it if we think it's too bad. At the end of the day, when that person says, I really want to do it, listen, I really want to do it, we all love it and we end up doing it. So that means that we try to combine that like solo GP fund feeling of every one of us should feel that autonomy and agency ourselves. So to your question, do I want people to have like too much agency or too much drive or too much urgency? Yes. No. Yule doesn't want that at all. Yule wants them to have like a 4 urgency out of 5. He wants them to have craft 5 out of 5. Yule loves like clarity of thought and craft. Like he wants to talk to an entrepreneur. They show the product, they show the notion, they explain it, and you'll ask like, I don't really understand it. They go through it in so much detail that you think that they must have worked in the industry for 50 years. They might be a lecturer and 2 PhD in it. And it could be anything, like could be a science thing, could be a non-science thing, right? Like it's just like the level of detail that Yule just loves. Like if you ask them why 10 times, they just continue. Yule just says, I love this. For Heidi, it's that like vision and drive of like building a better world, and not just like kumbaya building a better world, but like Somebody's like a leader of tomorrow. That's like, we want to lead tomorrow. So that's like one of Heidi's most important things, which means that when we go kayaking once a year with all of our founders to a small island, you could easily, not easily, but you could probably divide people into 3 groups. There's one group that like before they start thinking, they just start acting. Yeah, those are my people, right? There's one group of people who really thought stuff through, and they have like packing cubes for stuff, and like they bring things up, and they have a good multi-tool. Yeah, these are Heel's people. And then the people who other people just stand and listen to when they're talking. Yeah, those are Heidi's people. So the thing is that, of course, like I want people to have super strong craft and collaborative thought. I want people to be leaders of tomorrow, but like 4 out of 5. But I want them to, goddamn, when I WhatsApp them, to respond like within 2 minutes to say, yep, solved already. Because otherwise I'm like, what are we waiting for? And like, I can't handle waiting myself. And I feel like, why would anybody wait, right? Like at the drop, I respond to all of our emails, WhatsApp, like whatever. And like Jenny and Ashley I work with, we have this 0 inbox joke, not joke, where we every evening on a WhatsApp channel, 3 of us write when it's 0 inbox, like 0 inbox. And then somebody's like, fuck you. And then like, and half an hour later, the other person writes 0 inbox. And then Jenny's like, you guys. And then she writes 0 inbox. And then we all know, no, it's destroyed, right? Because like, new mail is coming in. But the attitude of like, every day ends by us solve the problem we can solve, and then we go to sleep, and in the morning, yeah, new problems arrive, right? That's my attitude of solving problems. But the thing is, if you want to build a fusion reactor, like I shouldn't build one, right? Like, it's like, it's going to blow up.
And
So they need different skills, right?
of course, where do you think that comes from? Maybe like more on the personal side, I guess. Maybe like if you go back in your childhood, I don't know, but like, what do you think that agency comes from? Because it's actually very, very, very impressive. I mean, I don't know how many emails you get per day and how many you send, but like, you do reply to every single email very quickly and with a solution. It's not like you're replying, okay, I'll text you in 10 days to give you the solution. It's like, I'm giving you the solution right now.
There is actually I can explain how I grew up, but I have to say a really funny story. I met one of our LPs at an event earlier this year, at like a small weird event, and they were like a fairly like prestigious LP in a sense, in a weird sense. And as a person came up and like said, how do you know each other? And they were like, yeah, we invested in Pilbardot. And they're like, whoa, shit. Like, how do you do this? Like, but you never do these kind of funds. And the person says, have you ever emailed Hampus? And I was like, yeah. Yeah, after a couple of emails, we were just like, we're on this boat. We don't know what they're doing, but nobody can, like, this is something interesting. And I was like, what? Is that the DD? And they were like, no, of course, we did a lot of DD, but it was a factor. Like, when we ask Pilbardot question, we get a response, and we sometimes think, did we send the email? How the heck did they read the email, figure it out, and respond to us? Whether that was a reporting about when do we get the tax report for this, or tell them about this startup, can you introduce to these? When we ask you, can you introduce to 3 managers that are in this geo that we like, we get 3 interests right away. And we're like, you're literally introducing us to your competitors. And we're like, yeah, but like, welcome, we'll win. Like we can't keep you away from them, right? Like, or they're like, and also they're not our competitors, right? Like the weird thing is like, the amount of money that goes in the world, like 1% of it or less goes to venture, slice that up, and 1% of that goes to some kind of like impact planet positive, slice that up, and like, 10% goes to climate. So like if we can get that thing to go to more, just like get big asset allocation to add more to venture, to planet positive stuff, and to climate, all win. If that is another fund or us, doesn't matter, right? So it was so funny when they said it. I was just like sitting there shaking my head thinking, oh my God, like we don't really realize how much comes into when you judge a fund. And then I was reflecting on the fact that Heidi Newell and I do the same when we talk to a startup.
Yeah.
Like there's so many times we've been in a meeting where I've had an amazing meeting with the founder. I'm like, this person is amazing. We come to a meeting, Heidi and me with them, and I realize they're only talking to me. And like, I don't really see it, of course. I feel like we have a great conversation. And then I like ask Heidi, and Heidi said they never looked at me at all. I was like, shit, that's insane. They really, like, they don't get it. Like, and we decline them. We're like, I'm really sorry. And it's so funny because it's really like you have to ace all things, right? But you don't know what you're going to be judged on.
Yeah.
So, but back to your question, like I grew up, I have 3 older brothers. They're 8, 9, and 11 older than I am, and two parents, which means that technically I like in metaphorical sense, I had 5 parents. So like I kind of grew up as like this weird sense of being like I was the only child with 5 parents, which also meant that I had 3 brothers who had tested everything. Like, I want to build a shooting range on top of our flat roof with a BB gun. My mom looking at me, yeah, Andreas already did that, so go ahead. Like, don't use that one because that actually likes that painting. Okay, whatever. So like I always had that thing of like, yes, go ahead, please. Why are you asking? And I think that at the same time as I think the culture I grew up in was an extreme, lovingly, caringly environment. So like I never felt I don't care. I just felt, why are you asking? Please go ahead. But also, of course, there were boundaries on like, okay, I'm going to jump out a window with a knife. Yeah, maybe not doing that. So I jokingly tell friends that my own parenting philosophy, I have 3 kids, is like I would allow my kids to do anything I would allow a drunk friend to do. So like if one of my kids would say like, I want to run with scissors, I'd be like, no, I wouldn't allow. If Ewell was had 4 beers, I would also take the scissors from him. But if Ewell says I'm gonna eat a ton of like mowed lawn, I'd be like, go ahead. You're gonna vomit an hour. Go ahead. I mean, it's like it's gonna look really funny. I'm gonna video when you do it, right? I think that attitude was really the one I grew up with, which was like, go ahead, knock yourself out, and also like this attitude of love, of
Yeah.
being like, I was not like, oh, one kid, but like very much accepted enough for like my brothers read like bedtime stories to me when I was a kid. My parents did. We went on hikes together all the time, like, like just long walks, long talks. And I think then the third thing is that I had this really funny, I guess I would say, instant when I was a kid. So I came home and I had drawn like a really nice apple, like, and in school I was so like, it was really, really three-dimensional. I was like 6, 7 years old. It was like amazing, right? Put up on the fridge. And sometimes you put up on the fridge, my parents put like $1 on it. Like, it's like, that was good work. Whatever it was, like it was so random when you got that dollar or whatever. Not a dollar, of course, Swedish currency, but the
Yeah.
same equivalent. Put that up. I was like, I'm gonna get $1 for this. What is good? And next to it was my brother's MC Escher, like perfectly drawn 3-dimensional thing that he had put up. And I looked at it, and I was like, I then suddenly knew then and there that I'm inherently shit. Like I knew, like the objective. Like I see his. I'm not dumb. Like I see his thing. I see him. I say, and I was like, oh shit, I didn't know I was that bad. I'm like that bad. What I didn't understand was, of course, that he's 11 years older than I am. So he was
Yeah.
17. It was not a strange thing to do when you're in college, but like I didn't understand that. Then my dad came in and he saw my apple and he was like, that looks just amazing. That looks really, really nice. I was like, I hope you feel proud of yourself. That was really nice. And I was like, and then and there I realized, I mean, he sees how ugly it is, but he loves me anyway.
Yeah.
So I grew up in the environment just thinking that like they love me even if I'm shit. And while like, you can do everything you want. And then it took me quite a lot of years to realize, hey, I'm not shit. And I don't mean that in a negative way that my parents said you're shit, but in the way that I just thought I was shit. And not, and again, not as self-deprecating, but just like a natural, I guess I suck a bit. And I think that was a very healthy way of approaching things. So
And
like,
it's maybe, it's a very low level psychology there, but I think in the way you approach your relationship with funders as well, it's like you're giving love to people. I mean, in a sense that you will never let someone down. You will reply to people. You will explain if you need to explain something. You will talk and discuss if it needs to be. So like you actually deeply care about people in the way you approach things in business, which is, I wouldn't say unusual, but a lot of people don't have this ability. And also you have the ability to manage a shit ton of relationships as well, right? Which is, I mean, you probably knew every single person at the job, which is also crazy to me. Um, but let's switch to something else. You mentioned a little bit about solving or aid his vision to like solve large planetary problems, I guess. Where does that idea of climate comes from for you? We were chatting earlier, just to cut the long story short, but you sold the first company, very successful. You built a few others. You started angel investing, a lot of investments, I think 100+ investments, not in climate specifically. And then
mm.
you, at some point, decided to build a climate fund at the time when it wasn't really that hot.
No, so the background is like, I think again, this is a difference between Heidi and myself. So I think that I, at the time, like I was doing angel investments. It's 2017. I was doing angel investments, loving it. It was great. I really enjoyed, like, it's like a friends with benefits thing. It's really easy. Like you don't have any ties. You just angel invest. You can help them a bit, but then you don't have to be bothered tomorrow. It's very simple. Nobody asks you for reporting. Maybe your partner asks like something, and you can like, oh. But it was very easy. And then a person, when I got acquired, I worked doing M&A at BlackBerry, who was the acquirer, and then I acquired a company in Germany where the VC early bird had invested, so I interacted a bit with early bird then. And then one of the early bird guys, Jason Whitmire, called me then in 2017 and said, "Hey, Hampus, it's Jason. Remember me?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course." Like, Jason, like, yeah. So like we talked about that. Like, like negotiate that agreement well. Like had a good banter on the phone. He said, "Yeah, I would love you to come. We're doing a conference. Like, sorry, dude, what's we're doing? Oh yeah, we're a VC fund. We're just starting up a new VC fund in a couple of months. We'd love you to come at our inauguration." I was like, It's not really, like, I'm really sorry. Like, I really hate VC funds. And it's like, well, sorry. No, but I mean, VC funds are like, it's like people who usually don't give a shit about anything, who are just trying to think how to get rich on the management fee. That's like my philosophy about what VC funds did. And I like just felt I'm not super interested. And he was like, yeah, blah, blah, blah. Like, what's the event called? It's called Decentralized and Encrypted. And I was like, yeah, okay, great. Oh, I know a person who works in decentralization. He was like, oh, yeah? Yeah, like a startup I invested in. And he was like, oh, I really want to talk to them. I can invite them or anything. Yeah, great. And I knew this was the litmus test. It was a female founder in a super deep tech company. And I knew that like most VC funds cannot handle talk like by a female founder about deep tech because these are like 45-year-old insecure men. So it's not going to work out. So I thought that I introduce Anna to Jason. They're going to have a chat. Anna will say their shit and, you know, I don't have to go. Introduced them. Anna calls me 3 days later and said it was amazing. 3 people came to the call, Chad, Jason, Kieran, super prepared, great questions. And I was like blown away. It was amazing. And it sounds like you're giving me a term sheet. I was like, oh my God. I picked up the phone, like, and I called Jason. I was like, I would love to come to your event, Jason. And he was like, great. And tell me something about the event. Yeah, it's an old art carpet factory in East Berlin and everything. He just started talking about like how it sounded more and more like non-VC. And I was like, who are the speakers? It's kind of like a strange thing. Like Edward Snowden is the first, and they're launching this new Bitcoin initiative, like DAO. And I was like, what the heck is this? So I went down essentially like eyes wide open, just being like, I wonder what's going on, right? And just blown away by like Jason, Kieran, and Chad, and just like meeting them and just feeling like VC is such a broad thing. There's so many amazing people in it who are like doing an amazing thought process and like so many things. And I completely fell in love with them. I was like, wow. And after a couple of weeks, they were like, so why are you not working at Blue Yard? And I was like, yeah, I guess why am I right not working with this? I started working at Blue Yard. And then the thing about Blue Yard, which I so respected, was that they really try to figure out, or like we at the time tried to figure out, like, what does the future look like? So, and try to invest before it happened or like making it happen. So like essentially like, you know, make the future happen in a wonderful way. And also like in a deeply interesting, like both political, scientific, really fundamental way of doing stuff that most VCs would just be like, oh my God, I wonder, is this legal? Kind of question mark, which I loved. The radical way of thinking. And then after the first event, this decentralized encryption event, I kind of asked Kieran a bit like, when is the next event? And Kieran was like, no, we're not events people. That was horrible. We're never going to do it again. Hampus, it was insane. I was like, no, that was the best thing ever. You like, you know, you got his people together, you got people think, and like we met interesting companies and like, you know, co-investors and everything. He was like, yeah, I'm not doing more. Okay, shit. Like, and he said like, what do you mean? Like, I would love to do one on how we create life from scratch. Yeah. Yeah, let's do that. And I'm pretty like monomain. So like I go into a subject and read a lot about it. And I was massive into this crazy thing that wasn't really there yet called CRISPR. And through a chance of things, we got Emmanuelle Charpentier, who then got the Nobel Prize thereafter. And she said, like, I'm happy to be the speaker. Like, I was like, holy shit, we got Emmanuelle Charpentier. We didn't know that she was I mean, we knew, but we didn't know she got the Nobel Prize, of course. And when we got her, like, I started inviting other people around. And suddenly we had this crazy event when people flew around from all the world, 100 people, invite only, to talk about how do we design life from scratch. And after that, I think with the whole fund, we just so changed our mind about like what we could invest and not invest in. And we said, let's do more. So we did one on, you know, quantum physics. We did one on nuclear, on fission, on fusion. We did one on how do we develop software in the future, and just kept on. And just really trying to just like have this crazy foresight, which was very action oriented. It wasn't like there were academics, but it was way more of like actually how to build the future. And then in 2019, I was like, I know the next event, and like I organized these things. I like it was perfect for my monomania. So I was like, I know the next event. I really want to do it's climate change. And then Kieran and Jason just stared at me and be like, that's not a great idea. I was like, what? And the thing is, like, I mean, Kieran was vegetarian. I was pescatarian at the time. Kieran was almost like scolding me for eating fish. Like, what are you eating fish? Why are you eating fish? I was like, yeah, I know. I was like, I know, it's not really like that. So, like, and Jason really cares. Like, live close to nature and like, no, these are not climate deniers. So I was like, wait, why don't you like the climate change idea? And they were like, it's very, you know, I was like, wait a second, quantum computing, fusion, like, you know, what happened, right? Like, how is this crazy? And they said, like, you know, you got to carte blanche, like, do something, of course, Hampus, but I like, yeah, it's awkward, right? And I'm not politically awkward. They were super open-minded. Started building this event, and again, I fell in love with it, want to do it. And the thing that got me hooked was really, if you started thinking about the planet as a massive machine, and you think about this machine, how these cogs moves around, and I don't know what the output of the machine, I don't actually know what it's trying to make, but it's trying to make something. Best way to building that machine is that you want to have as low friction as possible. Friction is trust. So you want people to like trust science, trust institutions, because otherwise you just have like lots of like bad handovers. If I tell you something now and you don't trust me, you're going to like divide that by 10. But if you trust me, you're going to take it and then you're going to move it forward. So like trust is really good for just getting speed, right? And then the other part is like equality. Like if you want all the machine parts and all the things being used to build, you want all the people involved. You can't just say, oh, let's take Ivy League white men or dropouts or like people who live in El Segundo, or like you have to have like all kinds of people's minds. And I don't mean that from a, again, not from a kumbaya perspective, but just like, again, just egoistically think about this machine that wants to build stuff. And then the third thing, you have this problem of this machine trying to build stuff is that you have the temperature in the room where the machine is that just goes up and up and up, and there's more carbon dioxide and everything. Carbon dioxide is crappy because people can't think, and whatever, like temperatures go up, we have more floods, we have more storms. Like the machine is just like, please get rid of this. Like, please let me be in like a humidor where cigars are, so like I have a perfect environment. So like, just look at this machine and saying, okay, we need trust, equality, and climate change. And I was in 2019, I was just obsessing about this. It's like, can we just please unite everybody to fix these three? Can we just fix trust, equality, and climate change? Then let's go and let's machine produce whatever it's supposed to produce. May it be fiction or Spider-Man movies. I don't know.
I love the naivety there. It's like, let's just fix those three. It's so easy.
Yeah, but I think that I am. I mean, we had talked about fixing, infinite fusion energy for the planet or like anything. So I think that I had an attitude like, oh, let's go. And of course, we're not going to single-handedly fix it, but it's going to be a massive coordination game. But let's not fix it. So then I started obsessed about that 2019. Heidi and Yule ran a fund, super early fund. It's like semi-accelerator, semi-venture builder fund where they brought in super great entrepreneurs with a very good idea, and it really helped them accelerate and raise their pre-seed round. I was in the IC of that fund. So we know each other really well. And I invested in some companies before them, sometimes after them, sometimes together. We had like a good banter of what we loved and didn't love with founders. And then they're raising their second fund. So like, oh, let's go and raise the second fund. And then we meet every week. We live in this same small town of 300,000 people. There's nobody here, right? Like I usually joke and say there are 10 ambitious people and we know the other like 7. So like it was a great conversation. And then I got more and more obsessive about it while Blue Earth is also saying to me, like, what's the next event? Like, what's the next thesis? And I was like, I'm getting really stuck on this thing and I can't see how I fix trust. Like that feels like a very complex problem. And Blue Earth is also massive into like non-trust, like massive on Bitcoin and other things, which like I get, but like I was like, no, like, okay, equality I think is really much how we think about it, like who we should bring into the room. I think it's hard to invest in like equality as like a thesis topic sometimes. But I think climate change is obviously it, right? How do we transport heat, like anything? It just feels like everything. What do we eat? Everything. So I was like, that's kind of an obvious thing. Let's go do it. And I'd built this conference, so I kind of see all the solutions. So let's go. And then in the meantime, like Heidi Newell's second fund, and then we just go into this conversation in the middle of 2019. Heidi goes to the conference I'm building in Berlin, and we just start jazzing about this idea and like talking about it and then more and more. And then it just like I think it was Heidi who said it originally. I don't know how it came up, but it was like, we should just do the fund, right? Why would like Heidi will raise a separate fund and I'm like obsessing about one thing, which is close. But Heidi's aspect was much more like humanitarian, much more like if you look at who gets suffering for climate change, it is women, it is people in global south, it's children, it's poor, like it's not wealthy people in New York that get damaged. They're really frustrated because they can't have their fresh avocados this week, maybe, but that's about it. I'm not like, of course, it's horrible for everybody. You might be like, but like the poorer you are, the more female you are, the younger you are, the worse it is, and the more colored you are. And then you take like Yuval's aspect is much more like the clean degrowth climate, much more the 1990s green movement, like the philosophical way of let's sail to meetings. And me is more like the autistic, the world machine, for God's sake, the world machine. So then when we started talking about it, it feels like, okay, we have this common ground where it actually ends up being climate. So then I quit Blue Yard, I leave 1st of October and start fundraising, and Heidi and Yule joins rightly after. And we start the fund in 2020 in June and start investing. And I think in the beginning, it's really interesting because running a fund is so different from running a very small fund or from running being an angel investor, right?
And let's maybe get onto that. It's something where I want to deep dive a little bit more because you had done a lot of deals before as an angel, but as you said, it's having friends with benefit to quote you, which is like you don't have a lot of constraint once you do it as an angel. Going into the fund, it's funny because the structure itself feels to me that you wanted still to have this idea of let's keep it as low touch, I guess, as possible. Have just three partners that are investors. The three of you decide. You don't have a big team. You could have had a big team if you wanted to, and also just having the flexibility to just whenever you see someone great with a great idea, as you said, you want to have one hell yeah, and the rest they'll follow, right? So is that something that was purposely built into the fund?
I think yes and no. I think it was one of those things. I think it was purposely built into us, and I think that we did the first investments. We iterated on many aspects of this. So I think that when our LPs ask us like, "What did you change from Fund One to Fund Two?" Um, like I always tell them like nothing, and they're looking super like there must be something, and I said no. Okay, sorry. What we changed October to November, you mean? Or what we changed to January to June? What we changed we change all the time. So like we've changed our voting process and structures and philosophies, I would say 20 plus times during the fund. Like how we fund model, how we think about reserves, how we think about first tickets, second tickets. Do we try to lead the second round? Do we not? How much hardware do we do? How much like carbon economy? Like what kind of founders? We talk about this all the time in the office. Like all the time. We have these conversations where like what kind of founders do we want? How do we get them to come to us? And so on and so forth. And I think that it is like it's an iterative process, and I think like I could now spin it and say, "Oh, it's an iterative process because we're trying to adapt to the market." Yes, and I think it's also an iterative process because like a fund can be like our LPs and almost no LPs. Like the thing is, LPs like they generally don't care about the structure. They care about tax and getting money back. And like, of course, there's some don't do that because or don't do this. Like, we don't want to see those kind of things. But that's about it. If you end up in putting everything in Bitcoin and it goes 1,000 times up and you return the money, they will still say that was good, right?
Even as a climate fund.
Like I don't know, but you know what I mean. Like the thing
Yeah,
is
yeah.
that I think at the end of the day, or you do like the massive investment you get in Bitcoin, but the headache is that you can't move the money out because it's locked in 4 years in Germany. Then it's not good anymore. So I think at the end of the day, it really is one of those things where I think the reason good LPs and good GPs set up structures is we set up structures because when you talk to entrepreneurs who can move mountains and are unstoppable people, it's very easy to plunge in 20% of your fund in that company. So like I think it's really good to just have saying, we don't want to do more than 2.5 million. And then it's like, well, the round is 8 million. Well, the payable answer is, well, then we don't invest. And I think there are people who are just like staring at us like, you should never be stopped by price. No, I guess we're just super boring. It's like, I'm really sorry, like, we're just not going to do it. I think we've missed probably amazing investments by not joining that 20 million round with like 10 million. I also think that we also got 5 more investments because we didn't do that. 5 more 2 million, investments. Is that better or worse? I don't know. But I think like, if you don't have any limits, I think that you end up being so chaotic that it's really, really hard to figure out what you want. So I think that we try to build that structure on one end, which is like what in normal language is called like a fund model. But also we're not trying to follow it. We're not an accelerator. Like we're not like a program where you get 250K for 4% or whatever. Like we have kind of what we want, but it's almost like a chessboard where like there's a couple of pieces. In our case, it's like 35-ish like squares. Each square is roughly the same size. We put in roughly the same amount of money. The way we think about it is like we try to think about the pre-seed and the seed as the same square. So like we might do the pre-seed of 750K, and then the next round comes along and we put another whatever pro rata, so we end up being at 1.5 million. So then what we view it as our initial check is 1.5 million. Some funds would report the initial check being 750K, but that's a bit dishonest because, like, sure, that's their first check. And again, it's just naming, right? But there are many times we had to explain to LPs and being confused about this because they're like, okay, so what's your reserve ratio? And we're like, depends what you mean. Do you mean from first ticket? Or do you mean like from seed? Or do you mean, what do you mean, right? And this is interesting arguments. And I think what we love and so much have great conversation with LPs, at the end of the day, it is that clarity of thought of we explain how we think it, and they realize that we've thought so much more than most people about it.
That's Joel. Joel is like behind it with like the why question.
No, exactly. We have different obsessions, right? But I think the thing is like really having that conversation, trying to figure out what we want with it. And I think the thing is we all share that. Like we all love talking about this in different ways or forms. And I think the good thing about the partnership of the three of us is like we pull slightly different directions. So the very interesting thing about Pilbadot, I find, is that whatever topic you take, 2 people care about it deeply. So you and I really care about fund model, Heidi slightly less so. And then you take branding, then like Heidi, you'll really, really care about it looks, me slightly less so.
Well, something else you said, which is interesting there, is on pricing.
Mhm.
That's something I wanted to react on. You said it was too expensive for you. Do you mean price or valuation? I'm curious because
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you do love great founders. Like you absolutely love great founders. I wonder how much you stop yourself sometime from investing if the valuation is too high, but the check is still okay.
I think a lot of times, and I think this is a classic conversation, I think, in the industry where people are trying to say, not only the first investments, because people might say, okay, the first round is like a 10 million round on a 50 post. And we say, like, these are three people in a shed. They don't have anything, but you know who it is and you know what it's like, blah, blah. Yeah, sure. Um, I think that's really a question. I think that we have a lot of humility on the fact that I think that we cannot predict the future. So, like, there's so many ideas I think that we've seen over the years that turn out to be like enormous unicorns and way better, that were so dumb when they started, and very few of them were consensus in the partnership, and very, very few of them were consensus in the industry. Like I was at an event and spoke many years ago, and backstage in the green room getting prepped, and the other speaker was getting ready, and I like asked him, like when he was getting makeup, I was asking, like, what's you going to talk about? And he said, yeah, like I know, like my company. And I was like, wait, you should love your company, like whatever. Like, and he's like, yeah. What do you do? It's a way of allowing people to kind of real time stream. So like when you're playing a game, other people can watch your game. I was like, that's amazing. That's
And I
super
was
cool.
okay.
It's like, that's amazing, right? That's super cool. And he was like, do you genuinely think that? And I was like, yeah. I mean, I play games, and I mean, people pay stupid amount of money to watch tennis and soccer, and I just start like, it's like, why wouldn't people watch World of Warcraft? I mean, I was in Korea for a long while, where it's a dedicated TV channel for World of Warcraft. He was like, exactly. We started like talking really good in the green room, and he went out, and history, lo and behold, that was an amazing company, and like got acquired from Amazon. And the thing is that it's one of those things where, like, when we meet an amazing founder, we have just so much humility of the fact that you kind of don't know, is this company worth deca billions? Only time will tell. I think what's good for us is I think that I'm, as a person, really obsessed about routines. I like routines. I like getting up the same time in the morning, having pretty much the same breakfast, going to evening, same time, reading with my kids, like running on Sunday mornings, blah, blah, blah. I can go on and on. If you're investing without any quote unquote routines, including ticket sizes and processes, it's complete chaos. I think the routines give us so much, and it sounds boring, but I think routines give you so much of just like Pillbot, we try to say no to founder within 24 hours. And if we can't say no within 24 hours, there's something good there, right? And then we try, like, it's not saying we're going to do it, but it's past a certain filter.
The way I like to think about it is like routine gives you this ability to throw darts, and then every day you throw darts at the same time, and at
Yeah.
some point you will always put them in the middle because you're just so good at it because it's always the same movement.
And the thing else about that, if you always throw darts and you try to throw them the same way, you might be miscalibrated by like 15 centimeters, but you see that and you can start driving towards the center.
Yeah.
But it's like, if you throw darts and knives and like balls and everything, it's very hard for you to be like, oh, our best investment. Like if somebody does an investment, like you can do a blog post, which is like, which are the funds that invested in the biggest unicorns? The data you're going to immediately find are the Series B and C funds. And the answer is, of course, because they made them unicorns.
Yeah.
So that blog post means nothing, right? What your question is, which pre-seed fund invested in most unicorns? And then, now you have a signal, right? And I mean, some people write that second blog post, which is smart, but a lot of people write that first blog post, which just doesn't mean anything, right?
Yeah, sure. Something that came back to mind on this idea of the partnership that you have. I was chatting with you yesterday, and he gave me some advice about becoming a venture capitalist. And one of the things he said is, um, to be a great investor, you need to be the weirdest, most different people than any other people. You should not try to follow the path of other people. If you do, then you will be a very bad investor. Do you think all of the three of you are weird in some ways? Do you think that's why it's working so well?
Yes and no. I would say, I think that Heidi's philosophy, if you would have asked Heidi, she would have said, if you want to be a great VC, you should have started a company before. I think my answer to it being slightly more, I would say, model driven in a sense, is I would say that I think that if you do pre-seed, I really agree with what you all said. I think if you're doing Series B, I think that's very
Of
bad
course,
advice.
yeah, of course.
So I think that, like, if you do pre-seed, I think that the combo you should do is that you have a fund model that makes sure that you get enough shots on goal. and you know that the ratio of pre-seed to seed is like, let's say you get 20% to raise a new seed. That's pretty brutal, but let's say you take crazy risks. So then and then you know that like 30% of them are going to raise at A, let's say 50% raise at B, and let's say 50% exit, do the math. You probably got to do 50 investments, right? So then like 50 investments, and it's like, it's a pre-seed. I need 500K. I would love to have 500K more to be able to kind of put a second check in. So I need 50 million. Okay, so now I have 50 million. And you know you're going to do 50 deals. It's not investable capital. I know I'm like now being very simplistic here when I'm saying it, but just the round numbers. Okay, and then you know that if you find a company that's raising 10 million, it's not your company, right? So that's like the now you have that part of the brain. Now you go to the other part of the brain. Now you can fill this chessboard with like 50 companies. If you now take a company that's like, I think there's a kind of company where good is the enemy of great. And then there's the kind of company where great is the enemy of good. I think there are a lot of companies where you can easily see them turning over $1 million. And you have a hard time imagining how they're going to turn over 100. And then you have companies who you think, how the heck are they going to survive 2 years? But if it works, this is going to be insane. You probably need to fill that chessboard with the crazy ones that you say, like, it's going to be interesting to see how it pans out. You will end up meeting people that are like, it's a really good business. Like we have a couple of those in the portfolio where it's a really good business. We don't know how this is going to be a $1 billion turnover company, but you can see like a $10 million kind of easily if they're just doing what they're doing. Our belief is that like 3 things will happen. The founder will continue to grow and not give up and open up like things. The market will develop and the world will change. And like, it will be like, okay, people want to watch each other play games or something. And I think that there are certain markets where that just doesn't happen as much. And then there are markets where it happens a lot. The quote unquote benefit with climate change is that every single sector is in so much stress. So if you have the craziest idea, like robot printing cobalt from molecular level in France, yeah, maybe we will need that because of independence, like European sovereignty and everything. Or it turns out that, Europe and China becomes the closest allies and cobalt is never a problem. Your company is worth nothing. The thing is that that's like, if the founders are in on it and they love it and you're not tricking them, these are the ones you should fill the chessboard with. If you're after consensus and you want other people to invest, you will fill it with like companies that are good, but it's hard to see them great. You are looking for companies that, if it works, it's insane. So I think that's really one of the things we discuss a lot is that, can this be like unbelievable in some way? And sometimes it is actually believable in the meantime, but there's something on top of that which is unbelievable. And I think that's a very smart pre-seed behavior to think about. It doesn't have to be. You could build a fund which you do 50 investments. They're all going to work out, and and like it's all going to work out. So that means you get 2x back, which is like, most funds don't get 2x back. The thing about that, then you're missing 2 huge factors. You're missing the human factor. So many of these people are not going to do what you want them to do, and they're going to, fight as founders or, pivot the idea or whatever. So like, yep, there you lost 30%, right? And you have a third, which is like the world changed. It's like, oh, the price of cocoa went to the sky, so your idea is gone. That's a third. So now you're sitting with a third of companies that are 2x. Whoops. Now you're no longer a 2x fund. So like, that's the headache of like, if you do the crazy bets, like you're kind of like, it sounds stupid that you're saying by taking more risk, you take less risk. But I think it's really about asking ourselves what risk you're taking. There's some risks that are just very obvious. Like, I think that we usually say that, like, there's a grim reaper. Every year, 10% of your startups are just going to die for an unknown reason. That's it. And you have no idea which ones.
Yeah.
So, like, if you invested in one company, you have a very stressful coming 10 years.
Yeah, and it's interesting because if you take that value chain of venture capital, the more you move towards, the more up you go in terms of the ladders, the more that strategy doesn't apply, right? Because like if you're a Series C fund, you're not going to put like bets into companies that you don't think will work out, but maybe if they work out, it's going to do well.
No, exactly.
Or that would be a crazy strategy for sure. Something you said earlier, and I think it's just like jumping into different topics at times, but you were talking about your routine, and one of the things you mentioned is your run on Sunday morning. And I was talking to Yoel, and he was like, yeah, he runs super early every Sunday morning. Like he wakes up and gets out with the kids. You know, you seem to be quite really disciplined across all of what you do. is there something like, is there a drive in you? What's driving you, Hampus, as a person to do all of that in such like a routinely manner?
I think the thing is, like, I honestly feel like I'm a highly, highly volatile person. And I think that I usually think if you want to get advice from somebody, you should ask somebody who's struggling with it. So I think that I can talk for hours and hours about routines and discipline because I'm struggling with it. Like, if you left me alone, I would essentially just read fiction book lying on the floor and just ignore everything. And I think that's not good. So I built all these routines for myself that make sure that I'm not just reading fiction books on a floor all day. But it's hard. Like, it's hard. So, like, I really try to build these things in constantly. Like, discipline doesn't come naturally for me. Like, it comes through years and years of just telling my team to do it. And I think that, I mean, now my kids are long distance runners. It's amazing going out with them in the morning. It's like rain, snow, sleet, sun, whatever, dark. And it's amazing going out and just running like 15K or 20K or whatever. And just like we meet up at this cafe and we have breakfast. And we have like massive breakfast, come home. My wife looks at us like we're completely crazy. It's an amazing feeling to have that together. And I think that, I mean, my kids didn't have it naturally either, of course. They weren't born thinking it's a great idea to get up at 6 or like even
Mhm.
earlier or sometimes and run or something. And I think it's like, I don't know, it's because I struggle with it, to be honest, that I like doing it. And I think it's like, you can see it in the way we build a team as well, is that Heidi and you and I are like volatile. I think the thing is, if you look at like Jackie, Yuan, Irini, Ida, now Leah, who just joined us, like the rest of the Pale team are extremely solid people.
Mm.
Like, they're very solid people. I think a very common factor with the Pale people is that you would trust them with your kids. Like, I think you would trust Heidi and me with your kids, and you would trust the rest of our team with your kids, because that's the kind of people you want to surround yourself with. Like, you don't want people who would stab you in the back. You want people who you feel like that. Are we all easy to work with? No, we are all idiosyncratic and wild in different ways. But the thing is really about like figuring that out of like where your strengths and weaknesses are. And I think that's the end of the day. It's like that 5-1 factor of like, are you crazy good and crazy bad? Like, I mean, Jackie, in my head of legal, like, she's amazing. And she sometimes asks me to read the documents before I sign them. And it's great that she
As
does
you
that,
should.
as I should, right? Heidi reminds me of that so many times. It's like, you signed while we had this conversation. Or like, there are many times somebody asks me something and I respond and they shout, "You're in the bathroom." And I'm like, yeah, I can multitask. Like, the thing is, like, I am very, very action biased. And then you need people who are not action biased. But I also, I mean, I did my degree in like control theory and like abstract mathematics. I can sit down and do math for 8 hours straight and just be focused. But the thing is that if you allow me to be volatile, I will be volatile.
Interesting. Well, to switch to another topic, I think I wanted to talk a little bit about the drop as well. It's it's interesting because it's a lot of people's favorite event of the year in climate. Like, a lot of people will say they love the drop so much, and it's the best in Europe. It's also interesting because I was thinking about it in terms of what it means for Pale Blue Dot. Um, why did you decide to do that? Does that come from the background that you have running events before and you loved it, or is there really like a strategy behind the drop for Pale Blue Dot?
No, no, it's like it's a really weird start it was. So I think one thing was that first of all, I don't like doing events. Like, and I don't like going to events.
Say the guy that
Uh,
runs the biggest events in Europe.
yeah, exactly. Like, well, you don't like it. I think that's the thing is that I think most times I go to events, I feel like the event is about selling tickets. And I feel like something that is about making money for the event, and it doesn't feel interesting. The speakers feel the same. I've been on many stages. I went up, we talked a bit. The panel's super unprepared because it doesn't matter. People aren't really listening anyway. They come for the 2 poster people in the beginning, and we're just like fillers. If you're one of the poster people, you come up, you do your TED talk, and you go down. Nobody really, like, they're just so impressed they get to see that person, right? They get a selfie, whatever, bye-bye. There's a speakers dinner. We all sit and talk about other stuff, and, like, nobody talks to the attendees for real. It's so weird. It just feels like, why are we doing this? And I think that's when I did these events at Blue Yard, like, Anjali, who did like the ops for the events, and Julia, like, they were just like the people who were like, we had food, we had coffee, we had venue, everything. And I was like, no, I want this person to speak. I want this person to come. I want this person to come. And I think that when we started Pale Dot, we kind of said that let's figure that out. The problem is COVID came. So we kind of let it go. We just felt, let's just stop that. And then it was a complete crazy serendipity that somebody said, like, please do an event, and we have a crazy strange budget, and like, you can do it for free, whatever. And just felt like, oh, let's go and try and do an event. And we did an event half their way, half our way. And it was very clear for me that, like, I can't do things half-assed. Like I knew that already, right? But like I think that I felt like if we're gonna do this, like we're gonna do it all the way. And I think one of the interesting things there is that if we do it all the way, we probably can't make the Pale Blue Dot event. Because the thing is, then it serves us.
Yeah,
And who the heck would want to go to the Pale Blue Dot event?
that's right.
So I think the thing when we did it the first year, so like how do we do it that it's like genuinely our event, but also genuine event I would go to because I don't want to go to events. We just felt we're going to do an event about the larger topic. And what's the larger topic? The larger topic is getting all people together and just making an event that you want to go to and meeting people and hang out with people, but also an extremely action-oriented event. And I think one of the things we really wanted to do there is we wanted to remove all hierarchies. So at Pale Blue Dot, we're very different in the sense that we don't value LPs as gods and founders as shit. And our job is to take the LP's money, take like a fee in between and get wealthy and then give it to some people in a trench and maybe they succeed and maybe we'd get even more money. And I think that's not what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to look at LPs as humans and who are not struggling a lot and take their money and give it to people who are struggling a lot. Not being Robin Hood here, but just saying the LPs want these people's money when it comes out on their side, right? And that's like the job. So like, how do we do that as an event? So then we don't want speakers. We don't want speaker lounges. We don't want like dating apps where people can reject each other. We don't want like a one-sided market in any shape or form. We want a place where everyone comes in a bit confused and just like hangs out, meets, have conversations. So then we wanted to craft that feeling, and the best way to do that is get people around a topic that they care about. So then the thought was like, we do an event where you come and you're so super obsessed about fusion, you really want to talk about fusion. Well, then you do that. And there's going to be at least 50 people who want to listen and have the conversation with you. And again, no hierarchies. Like you will start and people will interrupt you. And there's someone else who wants to talk about carbon accounting. Go ahead, right? There's another talking about plastics, but go ahead. So the job we set out to do was who gets through the door and who gets to do these roundtables, and then let's put this thing on fire. And that's what the drop is. And the headache is really like, how close is this to Pale Blue Dot versus the drop and what we do? And the thing is like, I think like Pale Blue Dot, we could milk and exploit and like make so many things with the drop, but we don't. And I think it's because I think we're just not good at that as people. We're like, that's not like what we're built for. And number two, we would not go to an event ourselves, which we didn't feel like. There are plenty of people that are using the drop better than we are using the drop. And I think that's great. That's great. Like, I mean, it's amazing. Like you go to like, Web Summit or Slush or whatever, and there's side events that you realize is the best side event or something. Well played. That's the reason that fund will always do that thing at Slush or whatever, because they get so much out of it. We just feel like Pale Blue Dot feels like, well played. I mean, well done of you. We're super impressed, right? So like I think we try to have that attitude with many things. I met an LP this morning for breakfast, and they said, "Oh, by the way, I talked to this person the other day from this other fund. Can you intro me?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course." I just got off my phone and introduced him an email. And she just looked at me and said, like, "Why did you do that?" I said, "I'm sorry, like you asked me." And she said, "Yeah, but they are one of your competitors, right?" And I was like, "Nah, I don't mean that in a cocky way, they're not our competitor. I just mean more like, it's kind of like if you're a dude and somebody says, like, do you know that girl? Yeah. Can you intro me? Nah, because I'm not decided if I'm going to date her or not. I mean, come on.
Yeah,
Intro her for God's sake."
yeah.
So like, I feel like for us, it's more like if you're an LP, one of us in a fund, just like, do it. I think I have like at least a call a month with another GP. I open literally up, everybody's invested in us. Some names I don't share because it's sensitive for them. And I just try to help them to like do intros and everything. And why is that good? Awesome people raise another fund. That's great. LPs are super happy because they found a great fund. Do I think it's going to hit Pale Blue Dot in some positive way? Yeah. We will have LPs that we will say, "Oh, we're raising Pale Blue Dot 3." And they'll say, "We're out of allocation because we invest in all the funds you introduced us to." That's fine. There's more than one LP in the world, right?
For sure.
So I think that you kind of have to have that attitude. Going back to your first question of like, do you do a company for its having fun? I think that we do Pale Blue Dot because we want to do Pale Blue Dot forever. And if you try to play like a zero-sum game, it doesn't work. I mean, there's this amazing book. I love this book when I read it back in the day, Infinite and Finite Games. And I mean, now it's like I'm really happy it's getting popular through other people as well. The original book is fairly dense, but it's such an amazing book. It's really a question like you can play finite games where somebody wins and somebody loses, like a negotiation or something, or you play a game as an infinite game, like dance. Nobody wins and both enjoys it. The thing is, if you're the best soccer players in the world, sure you're playing to win, but you're not playing to win. You're playing to play.
Yeah, for sure.
Like I think that thing is like I mean I love there's an ultramarathonist that is also a lawyer at Apple, which I think is like an absolutely amazing person. She hurt her leg a couple of years ago and like stress. She was out of ultramarathoning running for a couple of years. And it was the worst time of her life, she said. And when she got back to running, she beat everybody. And everybody asked her like how did it happen? And she said, I just wanted to run. I literally run because I wanted to run. I stopped trying to win, and that's when I won.
And I think that applies to, I mean, that applies to sports for sure, but that applies also to many other things. Funny enough, I don't know if I told you that story, but I used to be a professional skateboarder when I was
Oh, I
younger.
know. Okay.
So, skateboarding is very much about that, which like you
Yeah.
become good just because you like it, because otherwise it is so tough anyway on your body, on your mental
Yeah.
strength and everything, that if you do it just to win, this never happens.
No, it won't work.
But look, we are getting toward the end of this episode. I've learned a lot from you for sure. One last section, which I think is going to be very fun. We usually do fire questions, where you have a couple of sentences maximum to answer. But I've learned something about you, Hampus. Apparently, you're incredibly good at accents from all over the world. So you have for every single question to switch the accent to something else.
Okay.
I have 9 questions. I don't know if you can do 9 accents.
I'll try. Okay.
Well, how many emails do you think you have right now in your inbox?
I think I have probably around 70 emails that I have not checked out yet.
That is Danish?
Swedish.
Swedish? Okay. What's your go-to kind of mental reset if you want to, unload a bit from Pale Blue Dot and everything?
I think the thing I really like when I'm out running, I literally forget almost everything about myself. And like when you're at your 22nd kilometer in hell rain, I don't remember my name. So running is definitely one of them, but also reading fiction. Like, I think one of the weird things people don't understand about fiction is the technology we invented to teleport your mind into other people's bodies. So you can open your book and you can be like a Romanian 21-year-old girl in the 17th century for like hours and hours. So I do that a lot.
Incredible. What's one founder trait that always convinces you to invest?
Oh my God, that's hard. Always gets me to invest. I think it's that unstoppability. Like when you meet somebody and you just feel like, I mean, I think too few founders, when they hang up the call, I think they should email the GP back and saying, oh, actually, I am in Bucharest tomorrow, or I'm in Rome tomorrow, I'm in Malmö tomorrow, would love to meet, or next week, maybe to be more realistic. And the GP is like, well, if you're in Milan anyway, let's meet up, right? They're not going to Milan originally. They just go there because they want to meet you in person. And when you meet them in person and you realize they kind of lied to you, that's unstoppability is incredible.
This is actually amazingly good accent. What does your anti-portfolio looks like? Do you have like companies that you've missed big time?
Absolutely. We have many companies that we have on a list of anti-portfolio that we constantly look at and ask, why did we not invest in that company? At the end of the day, I think you can stare at your mistakes all the time. So it's a reminder for us, and I think we often use it when we talk about another company, and we say, is this new company we're talking to? Are they kind of like a situation we just had? And I think the deeper thing there for us a lot of times is really actually discussing why did we not invest in that company? And it might be that it was like 7 men in dress shirts that made us a bit hesitant. And then we realized that that's why we didn't do it. And maybe we should see beyond that bias this time.
Interesting. What's something people often get wrong about you?
I think I'm very transparent as a person. So I think people think that I like Heidi says this sometimes that like my kindness can come off as like manipulative. And I think I'm not manipulative. I think sometimes I just feel like I want somebody to do something so much, like out of kindness, but I do kind of like force the hand a bit. And I think that I know what Heidi means, but I don't want to be manipulative. I just want to be, as my daughter says, I'm like short-term cruel, but long-term kind is what she says. And I try to be that to everybody.
That's a good way of putting it. Which is hardest right now in climate VC? Is it raising money from LPs or finding great companies to
It is
invest in?
always fighting great companies. It's like it's a thing that nobody understands. It's a really complicated thing, right? You meet these people on video, and you have to decide if you fall in love with them or not. I think that's also it is really about being in the mode, right? To see these people and like I think it's always finding the founders.
Okay, one last question for you. You have to do the French one. I'm sorry. If you had three advice for an aspiring climate VC early in their careers, what would that be?
Oh, zit alors, an early stage VC in climate. I think it's really what I would probably do is I would raise a very small fund, like 5 million, and I would put it in like I would either find like I would either have like a people bet or I would have a like a thesis bet. So I would either say like we're gonna do only geothermal, and I would do like 10 bets in geothermal. I would be like the geothermal guy, right? Or I would do the people bet where I try to get like like 500,000 like checks in like really crazy people, and it's a prototype fund. So I would just show this, but I would either do thesis or people fund.
Super interesting. You're actually doing so well. It's even better than my French accent, which is surprising. Well, look, thank you so much, Hampus, for today. I learned a lot from you. If people want to reach out to you, what's the best way to do it?
Email is always best if they want like a genuine response. But the thing is, WhatsApp is super easy. It's like if you WhatsApp me, I respond. The only risk is if you WhatsApp with something that I need my calendar for, then it's like someone says, "Can you talk to me Tuesday next week?" I have to switch to calendar. Then I lose your WhatsApp because I had 2 million WhatsApps. So email is best. Like if you email me at hampus@paleblue.vc, if you don't get a response, it's either because you wrote a really crazy long email that my computer thought was spam, or because I haven't seen it yet, which is very rare. So do that. And if I didn't see it and you have my WhatsApp, just WhatsApp me and like, hey, send you an email now.
And last question for you today. Who's the next person that should be in your seat for an interview to talk climate VC?
Oh, that's interesting. I think there's so many interesting people, honestly. I think there's so many people that I think deserve more thoughts and time of things. I think, for example, I had a conversation with Nick yesterday a bit about corporates, like Nick at Planet A, sorry, at corporates and how they think about corporates. I think he has super interesting thoughts. I think that Renan Visage, who's starting Slate, is like, I think he's like, he's a legend. It is like, I think he's like super interesting. I think there's so many people I would want to have deeper questions with. I think if you take Rockas at Contrarian, I think there are very few people in the world that are able to hustle as crazily as they do at Rockas. Like, I mean, if you look at the first fund at Contrarian, it was like a 7 million fund, I think it is. If you look at all the conference they did, all the investment they did, you're like, wait a second, did you have like an endowment that just gave you money? No, they didn't, right? I think that's insane. I think that Sierra and Sarah at Voyagers, I think there are few people that hustle as hard as they do globally in the industry totally. I think I have like huge respect. Every time I talk to Sarah and Sierra, I feel like both intimidated and in love. And I think it's such an amazing trait to have. I think there are just so many good GPs out there that are so interesting in what to do. And I think you can widen that perspective. If you take like Andreas Klinger, for example, who does prototype, I think Andreas has this like wonderful, peculiar way of thinking, which spans beyond what most climate funds would call climate. I think that's also super, super interesting. I think Daniel at World Fund has a very interesting background. He's like a very political person. He used to work for Angela Merkel. He has like a very strong political mission when he does this, which I think is very fascinating. I think in general, I think there are just so many people out there that like super interesting ways of operating that I think should just explain themselves more.
For sure. Well, I'll reach out to quite a few of these people.
Happy to introduce.
So, as always, Hampus, I know that. Well, thank you so much for today. I loved it. Listeners, if you like this episode, if you like the show, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. If you're on YouTube, this really helps the show and allow us to get people like Hampus on the show. And otherwise, don't forget to give us a 5-star review and a follow on Apple Podcast and Spotify. Thank you, Hampus.
Thank you. Thank you much.